Prima acender aqui, então. Agora, cara, licença aí.
Sometimes success is merely hanging on when others would let go. Not doing anything spectacular or out of the ordinary, not leaping a mile or jumping over a mountain, but simply carrying on. Thomas Edison has a famous quote that's really stuck with me over the years. He says, "Many of life's failures are people who did not realize how close they were to success when they gave up." Right? How close they were to the finish line when they turned their back and said it wasn't worth it. Sometimes success is really an interesting thing to grasp when others would let go. Success is seeing, not doing what others spectacular. It's believing when others don't. It's taking the not leaping a mile or jumping over visions, those pictures in your head, but to make believe, and finding the courage to make them real. Bring them to Thomas life. Edison has a famous quote that's really stuck with me over the years. It's this constantly evolving process, and it grows a little bit every single day. People who did not realize how close we feel the momentum. We do something big and it's exciting. And sometimes the progress feels small to the finish line when they turn their back. And then there are times when we get knocked down and we don't see it at all. Sometimes success is really an interesting thing because we weren't validated when others would let go. Success is seeing, not doing what others spectacular. It's believing we forget that's part of the process. It's taking progress, leaping a mile or jumping over visions, and it goes when you go. To make believe, and it stops in finding the courage to make them real. Just like that famous Dalai Lama quote, the only way to really fail is it's this constantly evolving process, and it grows a little bit every single day. No one ever stops. Sometimes we feel close, we feel the momentum, we do something big, and they stop because they decide to. And sometimes they stop because they see that huge finish line and they think that's impossible. They forget it's only made of little knocked down and we don't see it at all. Sometimes they stop because they get so disheartened by the distance of the finish line that they forget it only takes a collection of little steps. It's believing. You don't have to leap the entire distance. It's taking progress. You know, I've been there. This is me speaking from experience. It took me years to figure it out. Finding the courage. And even now, life is rapidly evolving. Just like I've poured my heart into things that, let's be honest, no one cared about. I've invested in opportunities that fell apart right in front of me. No one ever stops. Each time it felt like the end of the world. We feel the momentum. We do something big, and they stop because they decide to. I've been lost. I've been on these see that gotten up after things didn't go as planned. And times when we felt like a loser. I had to look myself in the mirror and pick myself back up off the floor. But there's one distance of the finish that I kept doing that I never thought twice about. And that's continuing on. Whether life lifted me up or it beat me down, my plan for tomorrow was always the same. Get me up and try again. Finding the courage. And even now, life is rapidly. That when most would have stopped, you didn't. And that's when the world said no, you said yes. We are simultaneously expanding those limits. So over the years, I've adopted that mentality. And I look at myself in the mirror now and I can see it. I'm not the same person I was a decade ago. Those little decisions to add on 22 seconds, they stack up, and they stack up in a unique way. When the world said no, because it's not necessarily about the time. It's not the same benefit that, say, an hour every morning at the gym would bring. Obviously that would be incredibly valuable, but in a different way. I'm talking about mentally, an armor that we come to wear, an identity that gets materialized. It's how you see yourself and how you see the world. Those limits. You understand how manufactured our parameters are. And I get it, we have to stop somewhere, sure. So over the years, but it's an acknowledgement I've adopted that those somewheres are fiction. And I look at myself in the mirror now and I can see it. I'm not the same person I was to exist within them, but those little decisions to add on 22 seconds. They stack up, and they stack up in a unique. And that's an endeavor that is always uncomfortable. It's not necessarily about the time, but as far as I can tell, always worth it. It's not the same benefit that, say, the strength to go a little bit morning at the gym would bring than initially intended that would be incredibly valuable, but in a different way. I'm talking about you in mentally, an armor that we come to wear, and that's where I wanted to start. That gets materialized, bringing attention to the idea that there's always an extra 22 seconds in the world. Those limits, and you are always capable. You understand how manufactured our parameters. That is yours. Whether you choose to see it or not, it's an option. Sure. It's always an option. So over the years, but it's an acknowledgement I've adopted that those which sort of connects us are to my next shot. I look at myself in the mirror now and I can see it. If I know that's who I am, but those little someone that fights for that 22 seconds. If I know that's what I'm capable of, and that's what lights me up. What about those times in my life when I had no desire? It's not the same benefit that the strength hour every morning at the gym would bring than initially intended. Because sitting here, I can think of plenty. But in a different I can think of times when there was dissonance between my identity and my actions, and that's where I wanted to start. That gets materialized. Bringing attention to the idea. This is this was and you are always in my life and my understanding of reaching for that little bit more. Whether you choose, when people ask me, it's an option. It's about my process, what I'm building or where I see myself in X number of years, which sort of connects. I tell them I'm playing the long game, right? Like I'll sacrifice some short-term wins now to continue forward with a plan that I believe wholeheartedly will transform from linear to exponential, right? It's like Gary Vee's motto. You're young. And impact is not about succeeding at 34. It's about flourishing at 45 and 55 and 65 and 75. Like that's fun to me. That's the exciting game to play. And it's methodical. The challenge is, as you're locked into this big picture plan, you have to pass a lot of shiny objects along, reaching for that little bit. A lot of, hey, look at them over there. Maybe I should be doing that too. That worked for her, will work for me. Right? Sometimes you forget to trust yourself and stay the course. I tell them I'm playing it. So a few years ago, I felt this pressure to pivot, to adjust focus. Right? I'd been, talking with some mentors of mine who were, very successful in their individual fields and passions. And I thought, hey, you know what? It's time for me to start focusing less on the craft and more on monetizing the craft, right? The dinero side of things, which is great and it's healthy, but here's the catch. As long as you're doing it in a way that aligns with who you are. And so a few months go by, and I found myself living in this overly sized and priced condo on the beach that I was going to use to impress clients. Making products that didn't excite me, talking to people I didn't really want to be talking to, living a life that was not my own. I'd lost myself, right? My love is storytelling. It's capturing life's seemingly overlooked secrets. That's what I get excited about in the morning. That's the value I want to share with the world. And look, money is important. It's necessary. It's freedom. But for me, it can't be about the money or I lose the drive. right? And here's the point I'm making where it all comes together. What I found is that when you're a stranger in your own body, there's almost no incentive to push for that little extra. It's like, who cares about fighting for 22 seconds? I'm so misaligned, I don't even want to be here. Right? That is the red flag. That's the indicator that it's time to adjust. Because if I'm someone who wants more, who pursues and acquires more, and I don't feel the urge to do so, you know, it's time to change. And I broke the lease, put everything I had in a car, went on a little 3-month excursion, realigned. And if I'm not willing to suffer through that little extra, to go above and beyond, it's not for me. And so that's a big example, but it obviously manifests in smaller ways as well. Yes, you are someone who can and will chase down the beauty in life, who will transform that little extra into something meaningful, but you also have to position yourself and the world around you to make it possible. And when you don't feel that hunger inside, and this is the point you need to understand, it's not you, it's not broken hardware, it's not that you innately lack drive or confidence, it's that you need to rearrange the scenario, you need to find alignment. Because I promise you, if you want something enough, you'll be willing to fight for it, to hurt for it, to break boundaries for it. But you must first make sure that you're pointed at something you want, something that moves you. And here's the part where I remind you of all those things you've already overcome in your life, of all the times you thought your tank was empty, but you found a way. All the times you were hurting, but kept moving. All the times you were broken, but put yourself back together. We are not told in school or at work how resilient we are. We're not told that we often stop thousands of 22-second periods short. We aren't told that we're living at a 30% capacity, operating at a fraction of our potential. We don't even realize the little miracles we've created along the way. A strong purpose and a willingness to stretch yourself as you pursue it will change your life. And that's not hyperbole, that is fact. If you want what you've never had, then push yourself further than you've ever gone. And we're talking little stressors, expanding one step at a time, until you eventually look over your shoulder and see the miles you've traveled. Until you look at your reflection and see the evolution that has occurred. It was never just 22 seconds. It was a consistent and sustained shot at the walls you placed around yourself for the opportunity to see them crumble.